Hello there, this is the History Range, and I am talking about today, what if Germany, instead of going fascist and following the Nazis, what if they followed the Communist Party instead and became a communist nation in the 1930s? So, in the 1930s, the Nazis took power in real life, and they did World War II and atrocities. But in this world, instead of having the president of the nation Hindenburg underneath the democratic society that they had, instead of doing a coalition of the conservatives and the fascists, what if he did the conservatives and the communists? Which almost definitely would have never happened in real life, but it's a fun idea to just think about. So let's start off with, what would they be like? They would probably be very strict on ideology. The Nazis wouldn't be there anymore. They would be tied closely to the Soviet Union, and possibly alliance between the Axis and what used to be the Axis and the Soviet Union. So, in this world, World War II would probably occur because of Germany still, but it would have the Soviet Union backing Germany. So what probably would have happened is the Soviets and the Germans would be fighting the Polish and the French and the British like in our timeline, and eventually the Americans. But the Japanese would probably stay neutral, and if they ever did join, they would be with the Allies because they would want the Russian lands, which they claim. The Italians would probably be joining the Communists or staying completely neutral. I'm guessing they would stay neutral in this conflict because they are very aggressive towards Communists, but they would probably try to take the moment to seize land from France at their weak point. I have no doubt that Germany would still do the exact same amount of damage to the other societies that they attacked in real life. France would be taken over almost the exact same amount of time, and all that. I don't know much about the marshals and all that who were in charge of the armies, but they would probably stick around. Because they were there during the democratic regime and the fascist regime, so it shouldn't be any different. So, in this world, the Germans and the Soviets would quickly wipe out Poland, even faster than in our timeline. And then they would move on to France. France would be wiped out in the same way of Blitzkrieg. Just because they change ideology doesn't mean they change tactics. Belgium and France would be gone because they would go through Belgium like the Schlieffen Plan in World War One. What might occur is the Netherlands would be taken over as well, like in World War Two, because that was also part of the Schlieffen Plan, but they never had that part of the plan occur in World War One. They did a different version of it. So the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Poland are all gone in this situation. The Spanish, which were nationalists, Spain, which was a fascist regime, might have some conflict with them, and Portugal would be in a terrible position with communists and fascists in the continent, and none of their friends being nearby. The British would still do the exact same thing with having naval superiority and just blockading them and seizing their not supply boats, but convoys to other nations. Yugoslavia would probably get couped by communists, or maybe fascists would rise up again. Yugoslavia was very nationalist at the time, semi-nationalist at the time, but they were slowly heading towards the split up of Yugoslavia, with fascist groups in Croatia and Serbians being the majority, like acting as the majority of the votes in the Yugoslavian Congress. So what would probably happen is the breakup of Yugoslavia, or in what happened in our timeline, but a lot time along later during the Cold War, would be Joseph Tito, who was the communist leader in Yugoslavia, would again become communist leader here, and Yugoslavia would become a communist nation. Austria would still be safe and never join Germany in this timeline, so they would probably be very nationalist and fascist, but not quite Nazi like in our timeline. They that they would be pretty much exactly the same, but just live longer. Hungary would be pretty much the same, but never really have what they needed to gain land in Romania and Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia would probably aid the Allies in whatever they need, but Czechoslovakia might be invaded by the communists at a later point. Romania is a question, a big variable in this, I guess. They might turn communist, they might help the Allies. Still is a very unknown variable for all the nations, so you never know what might happen. But if they join the Allies, they would probably be quickly taken over, like in a span of months, I guess. Just because of their size of their military and their closeness to the Soviet Union and German forces. So Bulgaria would have to stay neutral in this, and Greece might join the Allies like in our timeline, but they would also be wiped out eventually, but a lot slower because they did not have a border to have that happen. A lot of other nations would stay the same, but it'll be a very close combat. But what would happen in what happened in our timeline and their timeline would be very different, because the communists would probably not like lose as fast as the Germans did. They might still lose, but they have the possibility of winning. The problem is it would probably be a big stalemate with when America comes in and Britain being there and all their colonies. But I don't really know for sure what would happen there, because it's a very big split and it's a pretty big stalemate. But another big difference is that in the Africa front, there would be no Africa front because there's no Italy in this war. But it's very likely that the communists would eventually lose, but it might also turn out to be a stalemate in an endless type of war. I hope you enjoyed this video, and leave a like, and just watch my other videos, which are similar. I'll see you next week for another alternate history video. Goodbye.